The reality is this wasn't a Maryland father. This was a El Salvadorian man who was illegally in this country, who was affiliated with MS-13.
There is no evidence to that.
Let's set the record straight about who this person is.
There's no evidence that he was a gang member.
With all due respect, if the Department of Justice has come out and said that he has gang affiliations, just like the same man who killed Rachel Morin had gang affiliations. So you would have told me before Rachel Morin's death, you would have defended that man and said he had no gang affiliations, and he went on to kill Rachel Morin. So instead of defending this gentleman, talk about who he actually is, and talk about the risk in keeping illegal criminals in this country. This is exactly what President Trump was elected to do, to return these people back to their home countries, and that's what he did.
We're not defending him. I'm going to reiterate that is unsubstantiated. There is no evidence of him being a gang member. He is married to a U.S. citizen, and he was in this country legally. Okay, but we don't know if he was
Being married does not make you not a gang member.
There's no evidence. We're going to move on. There's no evidence that he was a gang member, and I want to reiterate that to our viewers.
The Department of Justice came out and said there was credible evidence that he was a member or affiliated with MS-13.
You said he's a gang member, and he wasn't legally allowed to be here, which, again, he was legally allowed to be here. And he is married to an American citizen.
You can hold court for him all you want. He is no longer in this country.
All right.
The Americans are safer because of it.
And to go back to the original question, so right now the White House seems to be doing nothing about getting him back, and that's fine. I'm going to move on.
He's an illegal immigrant. He was here illegally with deportation orders in 2019. What part of that do you not understand?
I understand the story very well, and I'm going to stop going back and forth with you on this, but I will say, again, he had every right to be in this country. Is there any scenario under which this guy...
He was an illegal immigrant.
We're going to move on this.
No, I will not let you go forward.
Okay.
He was an illegal alien in this country with a deportation order in 2019. He is an El Salvadorian citizen. If you are not a citizen of the United States of America here illegally, there are grounds to deport you, in which happened recently.
Again, unsubstantiated. Those are not the facts, but I will move on. President.
Boy. So we got to talk about the Democrat Party. Okay, another story that I think is a great example of why the Democrat Party has a 21% approval rating. Probably worse than that at this point. Okay, I wouldn't be surprised if the Democrat Party, their real approval rating is in the single digits. Okay. It's just not cool to be a Democrat nowadays, right? A lot of people are ashamed to be associated with the Democrat Party, okay? That is how bad it has become. And one of the reasons why is because Democrats have decided that they're going to double and triple down on everything that lost them the 2024 election, okay? That's what they're going to do. And stories like this, specifically the story involving the illegal immigrant alleged gang member that was rightfully deported but mistakenly sent to El Salvador. Their defense of this individual, okay, them making this issue their number one issue, okay, them choosing to die on this hill despite the fact that Nayib Bukele has already stated that he's not releasing his own citizen, right? This is an illegal immigrant, alleged gang member, who's a citizen of El Salvador, not a citizen of the United States of America. Okay, he's not American. Okay, they are bending over backwards to basically demand that he come back to the United States of America. And they're upset that the Trump administration is refusing to essentially strong arm Nayib Bukele into forcing the release of an El Salvadorian citizen.
It's an error, and it was a mistake. Look, so this, I think you're speaking about their public view of the case.
I'm telling you that their view of it is that
public.
It's an El Salvador citizen who was sent back to El Salvador, who was in the country illegally, who, according to some people in his long process, which does include an existing deportation order, believes that he has an affiliation with MS-13. As I said, there's no version of this man's life where he comes back. And let me say one more thing. The people that want him brought back need to understand something. If the president of El Salvador releases him, and we do facilitate his return, when he lands in this country, one of two things will happen. He will be arrested, and then he'll either be sent back to El Salvador, where he is now, or some other country that I promise you don't want to go to. He's not going to be allowed to come back and live in this country as though he is a U.S. citizen.
That's literally the definition of tyranny, right? So here's what's going to happen. We're going to throw him in jail. No, there's a thing called the rule of law and due process, which has not been followed in this case. And if I have a slightly optimistic take on this, I actually think this is going to come back to bite the Trump administration, because what's going to happen is the next time this goes up the court system, they have absolutely zero credibility to say, don't worry, you can file a habeas petition, you can get your person back. The courts are not going to allow this to happen. And the idea that the Trump administration has the right of fiat to just decide to ship somebody off to another country, that is fundamentally opposed to everything a constitutional democracy
They have the ability to deport people who have deportation orders. Do they not? He got due process. He has a deportation order.
But then why didn't they make that argument?
A withholding of his removal order. So he was in the country.
Why did he have a withholding?
Because an immigration judge ruled that.
But why? What was the argument? Because he was fearful of a gang that hasn't existed in El Salvador for 4 years. There's more of that gang in Los Angeles than there is in El Salvador.
That's not for us to decide. That's the immigration judge decides that.
Can I just tell everyone something right now?
Yeah, so again, Democrat leadership, they are so upset by this that they're coming out and they're now threatening Republicans. They're saying that you are ignoring the courts, right? This is the new talking point from Democrats, okay, that President Trump is ignoring the Supreme Court. So therefore, Democrats are going to try to force the courts to hold Trump administration officials in contempt.
To intensify the pressure on the Trump administration to comply with the Supreme Court's directive, and the Supreme Court and or the federal district court actually needs to enforce its order. And the vehicles that are available for the court to do that relate to contempt. And that contempt can be directed at a variety of different members of the Trump administration, including but not limited to the Secretary of State and or his or her designees, and the Secretary of Homeland Security and or his or her designees for the court to determine.
It sounds like you're saying you think the court should hold some members of the administration in contempt. Anyone else you want to mention there?
Well, I think what the court needs to do is to set a deadline as it relates to compliance with the quasi-directive that came down from the Supreme Court related to returning Mr. Garcia. Specify that and then make sure that it happens. And at the same period of time, I think, as you've seen, and there's been some great leadership from Senator Chris Van Hollen, who apparently indicated earlier today that either his constituent is returned or he plans to go to El Salvador himself. And that's exactly the type of action that, as members of Congress, we can do to highlight the injustice, dramatize and amplify it, and force the administration to comply, which in this instance, I believe we will make sure happens.
Yeah. So I want you guys to understand. Not only is the Democrat leader advocating for Democrats to go to El Salvador, to go to a foreign nation's prison because they won't release their own citizen. They won't send them back to the United States. Incredible. Okay, incredible timeline, 2025. Anyways, not only are they advocating for that, we're going to talk a little bit more about that in a minute. But Hakeem Jeffries is saying that Trump administration officials should be punished. They should be held in contempt for ignoring the court, except they're not ignoring the court. Even CNN, their own guests had to come on and burst their bubble and say, yeah, President Trump, the administration, as right now, they're not ignoring the court.
And President Trump and President Bukele made it clear that Abrego Garcia will not be returned to the United States, despite this U.S. Supreme Court ruling saying that Trump had to facilitate his return. So are they just ignoring a U.S. Supreme Court ruling, or is the fact that the ruling was so mushy, in your words, giving him an opening?
It's a technical term I learned in law school, Jake. Mushy, look, they're working within the ambiguity that the Supreme Court justices gave them. they did not order the administration to return him to the United States. They said that they need to facilitate this return. They could have said, we order him returned, but they didn't do that. So you heard the Attorney General. She was being very careful in the Oval Office when she was asked, would you help? She says, of course, we'd provide a plane, right? Thereby facilitating whatever El Salvador is doing. The Supreme Court appeared to defer to the executive branch, given that this is an international matter. And you see, yes, it does look a little bit like a semantic game, but they are playing within the bounds of what the Supreme Court ruled. So no, they are not defying this order.
And take a listen to how White House Deputy Chief of Staff Stephen Miller views it.
And a district court judge tried to tell the administration that they had to kidnap a citizen of El Salvador and fly him back here. That issue was raised with the Supreme Court, and the Supreme Court said the district court order was unlawful, and its main components were reversed 9-0 unanimously, stating clearly that neither Secretary of State nor the president could be compelled by anybody to forcibly retrieve a citizen of El Salvador.
Stephen, you got the win. I don't know why he had to go so far, because what he's saying is not completely accurate. No, I talked to the kidnapping. All right. So the district court said that the administration needed to facilitate and effectuate the return of this man to the United States and gave a date. The Supreme Court says, yes, you need to facilitate this. But when it comes to effectuating, making it happen, they said this needs to go back down to the lower court. They need to clarify what that meant. And they warned the lower court, you need to be deferential to the executive branch because we're talking about foreign affairs. And they gave no deadline. So again, they're not running afoul, but Stephen's summary of the case there, the holding, it's not exactly accurate.
All right, Paula Reed, thanks so much. Appreciate it. With us now.
Yeah, so you see that, you heard that. Okay, President Trump is not ignoring the court. Okay, but Democrats are going to say that. You're going to hear it in the mainstream liberal media because they believe that the audience is ignorant, right? This is what they believe. Okay, this is what they believe. So, Democrats rely on ignorance when they don't have good arguments because, again, I just don't think it's a good look to come out here and to advocate, to die on the heel of an alleged gang member, an illegal immigrant, an El Salvadorian citizen being forced back into the United States of America, coming back here to this country, okay, a country that he is not a citizen of. And Democrats are breaking their necks, right? They're bending over backwards to try to get this guy. Even some Democrats going out of their way to say that they are willing to go to El Salvador, to go to the prison, to try to kidnap this man, right? To take him from his home. This is what Democrats are trying to do. This is how bad they want to fight on behalf of illegals. They're falling into the trap of the Trump administration. 100%. Democrats have not learned there's just some battles you shouldn't fight. There's some battles where you should say, you know what, we're going to let this one slide. It's not worth it. But they can't help themselves because this is who they are.
Requested this meeting with President Bukele while he's in D.C. Is a meeting set? Have you heard back?
Kate, it's good to be with you. I did request it. I've not heard back from the president of El Salvador. And as I said in that letter, if I don't hear from him and Abrego Garcia is not quickly returned, I do intend to go to El Salvador this week to show solidarity with his family. As you indicated, the Trump administration itself has admitted that he was abducted and sent to this prison in error, and he should get his due process.
They show no intent of doing anything to bring him back anytime soon, that is for sure. If by midweek, I mean, this could be tomorrow, nothing happens, you go to El Salvador, do you have a hope of leaving with him when you come back, or what can you accomplish there?
Kate, I hope to meet with officials of the government of El Salvador. I don't know if the president is going to be in country at that time. I also hope to visit this notorious prison to see Abrego Garcia, to let him know that his family and friends are very worried about him, as am I. I think that the situation for both the Trump administration and the president of El Salvador is unsustainable. Because the Supreme Court, as you reported, by 9-0, has said the Trump administration has to facilitate his return. And you have the president of El Salvador saying, well, I don't have the power to release him. Both things are untrue. The president could, of course, facilitate his return. After all, the United States is paying El Salvador money for this prison. And of course, the president of El Salvador could release him. So at some point, I think this becomes unsustainable. People are going to keep calling for his release because the Trump administration itself has admitted he was wrongfully whisked out of the country, and we have a 9-0 decision from the Supreme Court.
Okay, so the reason why I'm laughing randomly, I know a lot of people be like, "Oh, why do you laugh so much?" It's because the lunacy of the Democrat Party is funny to me, right? It will never not be funny to watch these people put themselves in the worst positions. I'm just here thinking while this dude talking. This dude is really, like, we have a sitting Democrat senator that is on national television talking about going to a foreign country to rescue an illegal immigrant out of a maximum security prison. Like, it's just something about that, right? Just something about how crazy that is. That's just hilarious to me, okay? Because this is how insane the Democrat Party has become. They're so passionate about illegals, right? How can a party that is willing to go to a foreign country to rescue an illegal immigrant, how can they tell the world or tell this country with a straight face that they won't secure borders? How can they tell this country, voters, that these are the people that should be responsible for enforcing our immigration laws or for reforming our immigration system? I wouldn't trust these people when it comes to anything having to do with immigration or illegal immigration, because they've already shown me that they quite literally believe illegal immigrants have an absolute right to be in the United States of America, even if they don't. And they're relying on these legal technicalities to say that, oh, well, Abrego was here legally, technically, because the judge, although she gave him a withholding of removal, that legally allow him to stay, even though the problem with that is that the withholding of removal allows him to be deported to any other country except El Salvador. So basically, the judge said that he can be deported. If he can be deported, then he was here illegally, right? That's how that works. Now, again, he may legally be in the United States in the sense that he can't be deported back to El Salvador, and he's legally here until they decide where he can be deported. But that is not the same thing as being granted asylum. In fact, that is an explicit denial, rejection of asylum. But again, to the average person, the layman, okay, the person on the street, the casual viewer, nobody gives a damn about your legal technicalities. Nobody cares. He was in the country illegally. He came into the country illegally, okay? And because he came into the country illegally, he's a citizen of El Salvador. You're never going to win this argument with the American people about whether or not we should be bringing back other countries' citizens to this country, forcing other countries to bring back their citizens to the United States of America. You're never going to win that argument, not with sane people. And then when you add in the fact that even if we bring them back, we can deport them again. We just got to deport them to another country, not El Salvador, which means he's not going to stay here, right? There's no scenario. There's no legal right for him to be in the United States of America. He does not have the legal right, because if we bring him back, he's going to be deported again. Doesn't matter. So there's no scenario in which he's going to be here. So what are Democrats fighting for? At this point, what they're fighting for is it's not about the illegal immigrant gang member anymore. They don't give a damn about him. What they give a damn about is trying to get a W over Trump. That's all this is about. This is about trying to make Trump look bad, trying to force Trump to bring back the illegal immigrant, to force him to admit, oh, they made a mistake. Look, Trump had to bring back that illegal, right? That's what this is about. They know this man's fate is sealed. He's not coming back to the United States of America, not permanently. They know that. So what they're fighting for, quite literally, is to try to score publicity points, woke virtue signaling points against the president. That's all this is. They just want to say, oh, wait, look, we made Trump fold, right? We made him bring back the illegal immigrant. And then they'll turn around and they'll criticize and say, see, Trump folded. See, that's what they'll do. You can't win with these people. So, I mean, at this point, it's just really funny to me, the hills that Democrats are choosing to die on. They're going to have a hard time convincing the American people that they take illegal immigration seriously when they're bending over backwards to literally bring illegal immigrants into the United States of America. They're kidnapping them, okay, from their own home countries. This is insane.
This is very important, obviously, to you, as he and his family are constituents of yours. But I heard this somewhat debated last night. And what do you say to someone, I'm picking a random place, Idaho? Why should we, the collective we, care about this one case?
Well, we should care about this case because of due process. Every American citizen is due their due process, and people who are in the United States under legal protective status, like Abrego Garcia was, are entitled to due process. So if the president gets to shred the Constitution and ignore the Supreme Court in this case, it is a very short path to the president ignoring court orders in other cases. So every American should care about this.
Yeah, so here's the thing. Democrats didn't give a damn about Lake and Raleigh. Democrats didn't give a damn about any of the victims of violence from illegal immigrants, including violence against police officers, which when it comes to January 6th, they claim they care about police officers so much and violence done against them. Except, again, when it happens at the hands of illegal immigrants or black criminals, right? Then all of a sudden, they ain't got nothing to say about police being subject to violence, right? They didn't care when we had no rule of law while millions of illegal immigrants were pouring into this country at the southern border. No rule of law. Now all of a sudden these people want to come out and say, oh, well, we care about the rule of law, right? It's like, no, you broke the rule of law to allow the illegals into the country in the first place. If you weren't breaking the rule of law, if you actually upheld the law, we wouldn't be in this situation, right? The Trump administration wouldn't be doing what they're doing if Democrats didn't let so many illegals into the country, if they didn't ignore the rule of law. And then they want to pretend like they care about that. No, you don't care about that. You don't care about that. Because if you cared about it, you would not have let tens of millions of illegals into this country unlawfully, right? Which is exactly what the Democrats did. So now they're upset that President Trump is, again, doing what he got to do. He's pushing boundaries. Because that's the only way that you're going to remedy this type of situation. Democrats, they have no issues whatsoever completely ignoring the rule of law to get what they want. But, when President Trump, again, pushes some boundaries, now all of a sudden they want to boo-hoo on and cry and say, oh, well, this ain't right, right? The rule of law matters. This is why, again, this story is just not going to be the PR win that Democrats think. It's just not going to have the effect that people think. I don't think that many people care about this random illegal immigrant alleged gang member. But, hey, this is the hill that Democrats are choosing to die on. All I'm saying is pay attention to the people that Democrats choose to care about, who they choose to fight for, and who they don't choose to fight for. It's the same pattern over and over and over again, and it's not a coincidence, guys. This is the same party sending money, funneling money to illegal immigrants, paying for their health care, their hotels, their food, okay? Trying to allow them to vote, bending over backwards to let them into the country, to protect them at all costs, rescuing them, trying to go kidnap them from other countries and bring them here. When have Democrats ever worked this hard for the American citizen? When have Democrats ever worked this hard for people who are actually citizens of this country? I want people to think about that. I'm just saying, Democrats are showing you. They're showing you in your face who they care about, who they're fighting for. It's not the American people. It's not me and you. It's not. So let me know what you guys think. Make sure you like, comment, and subscribe. Most importantly, share a Black conservative perspective. Peace.